Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Mitten Backstage. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm happy to be joined by guitarist, singer, member of the Overdrive Orchestra, Chris Cranick. So I met Chris through the Michigan music scene, probably through Blue Water Kings band, just because he is on that roster, and sometimes we have wedding and corporate gigs together. But I also reviewed Overdrive Orchestra's album that they had put out in the last couple years. And, you know, he's a talented dude, nice dude, great person to work with and play with. So it was fun to catch up after his recent wedding, which I happened to perform at. And now that he's, you know, settled into the married life, he has some time to chat about what he's been up to regarding, you know, the last year, the Overdrive Orchestra, all different things. So it's great to sit down and chat with him. If you like today's conversation and you want to contribute to my podcasting efforts, you can head on over to patreon.com/Snedeker. There, you can get early access to all of the podcast episodes that I put out in audio and video format, exclusive merch, and more. You can also head over to DutcherSnedeker.com to see everything else that I'm currently up to around the internet. And feel free to like, share, follow, subscribe, whatever prompt on whatever platform shows engagement. Feel free to do that. That helps push the content out into the algorithm. A simple like, a simple comment, all of those things go towards supporting these podcasting efforts as well. All right, let's get right into today's episode with Chris Cranick.
Awesome. Oh man, I think I'm good.
Cool. Yeah, how's I don't know, you're married, you're going into the holidays, you're so
yeah,
just a good season.
It is a good season, yeah. Hell of a way to round out the year.
Yeah.
It's I mean, married life it's the same but better for sure. I feel like at least a good married life should be the same but better.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like this grand, extravagant, like, you know, like everything's different. It's like now we're still the same two people. We're just we have a little bit more of a, you know, commitment to this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, granted, we're only a couple weeks in, but I'm pretty confident to say that it's going to be good.
Yeah. It's like it's been going good. Yeah, it's funny with how much stuff and me just getting over being sick too, like since I played your wedding, it feels like it was, you know, forever ago. And yeah, it's only
Seriously.
been like a month.
It's been a long month for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's nice. It's that weird thing too of like it's been nice to have more work than, you know, all the work that was canceled last year. But then there's also the part of me that's like, oh, I really liked not having to sprint around everywhere to just survive.
Right? Oh, yeah.
It's nice to just like, oh, I can just sit here, or I can go out and just enjoy something and not have to qualify it or check, you know, like, oh, should I buy this burger? I don't know. Like, budget's tight. It's like, nope. But it is nice to have, like, I was thinking about it the other night after the show I did with Lee Heerspink at the listening room.
Yeah.
We packed up, everything was being, you know, we're tearing down as we're talking to all different people who were there. And then I go to like finish my loadout, which I didn't really have. You know, Jim Alfredson brought the Rhodes that I played and the synth I used, and then the listening room had the grand piano set up. But I was just, yeah, you know, winding down after a show, and then there was a couple movies that got out around the time, you know, everything was starting to close, so the parking ramp was backed up for like almost 2 hours.
Oh yeah.
And so I just hung out with Steve Leaf and Cassie because I thought I was like, oh, I'll just go home and sleep, and then after that I'm like, oh, I'll just stay and hang for a second. And it reminded me of those, you know, some of the more fun things about shows when you're like, you can all like, it's nice to like chat with people who were there and were fans, or you know, they liked the music or they had fun. But it's also fun to just be like, oh yeah, these people that, you know, we were in the same career field, and we all kind of get each other, like being able to just like talk shop or just hang out after a busy show night.
Oh yeah, that's half the fun for sure. I love talking shop.
Yeah, well, and I didn't realize how much I, you know, missed that part of it, because it's, yeah, it's like, you know, most people think that, and understandably, like, you know, you're on the stage and you're performing, that's near like nirvana, like you're the top peak of everything. And then
Right.
it's like, yeah, that's fun, you know, I love doing that, but I also love the, you know, just the process of it all. And it was funny just having, my grandpa came to the show, and he's you know, he was like, is it okay if I come during the sound check? And I'm like, yeah, it's fine.
Totally cool.
And so he loves that too, of just the, you know, he wants, if he had it his way, every show would be like him seated, watching everyone load in, watching everyone sound check, watching everyone, you know, interacting with the staff and the audience, and then seeing the show, and then seeing, you know, he'll be there until like, you know, the janitors comes in.
Oh yeah.
If he was just left to his own devices. He loves the whole like process of it all, which is funny because it's like, he loves that. And then, you know, I had friends who came, and I remember a show I did last month where they showed up to see me perform. They didn't come for the opener, and I'm like, that's so weird that people like plan their nights to go to a show, and then they only come, you know, they only see one band.
Yeah, super bizarre. And I don't know if that is like kind of going back to like bigger shows when you're seeing a band at like a theater or an arena and you don't know who the opener is, but like there's only one way to find out about that other band. Like just go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also like there's like, I don't know, like there's a difference too, and it's like who's curating the event too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, is it Live Nation putting together something that's going to sell tickets, and it might be, you know, like similar artists, or is it a festival just booking a bunch of locals and you kind of get a variety pack of all different genres, or is it like, you know, like a band who is playing with another band they enjoy doing shows with, and they kind of complement each other, and it's more personable. Like it's fun to see. Well, fun, and it's like you're paying for a whole show. Why not go see the whole show?
Exactly. Yeah. You've already spent your money. Get your money's worth.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure with your group, Overdrive Orchestra, I don't know, like the shows you guys do are like the energy that goes into it. It's like you want people to be sustained for that whole night, and it's probably hard to like open for people if with that band. Like,
no, absolutely.
bringing in the energy, and then it's like, all right, here's someone else.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and you're spot on. We've definitely had shows in the past where we were the first band, and it was, if that second band didn't bring it, like it was a little awkward. We've also had shows, and it's, like you said, like you can't like force people to live their life a certain way, but I'm like, if we're like in the middle of the running order, I'm like, please stick around for like the last band or two, like please do. And we've had shows where everybody like bails after our set. And I feel so bad because it's like, yeah, like the life just got like sucked out of the room. And I'm like off at the merch table. I'm like, yo, I told him to stay. Like I can only do so much.
I can't lock the doors.
Yeah.
Well, it was like what Earth Radio did our show with Flexidecibel. and I forget who was asking about the orders. Like, oh, are you guys on first or second? I'm like, if we go second, no one will be there. Like everyone's gonna be there. Like Muskegon likes us, but Muskegon loves Flex Decibel, and
For
like
sure.
you know they bring the fun and the funk, and you know to like have us go second, there would be a decent amount of people, but most people are waiting. They want the ramp up to the party.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially on Halloween. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sure that was a stellar show being on Halloween weekend.
yeah, it was fun. It reminded me too why, you know, good, you know, good things throughout the night, seeing folks and catching up with people. And then also because I haven't really been drinking a lot, and or I don't even think I've had a drink since the summer, but um just that reminder of like, oh yeah, this is what happens when like you're trying to fit all of your fun into one day, and you see like, you know, I don't know how many people were like just way too trashed.
Oh, for sure.
They
Yeah.
just turned, they like, there's some people who were like, okay, they turned up and it was fine, they kept it together, and then other people were like, you know, I just walk out to load out and there's just vomit all over the back wall of the whole building down the block. And I'm like, how many people? So yeah, it's been interesting, like doing shows, you know, like wondering with COVID how people are going to respond, and then you just see some shows where it's like, oh, I guess nothing's different, and then other shows where it's like, you know, you're isolated on a little island, and then everyone's really far back and just kind of masked up and polite, and you know, it could still be fun, but it's 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 funny trying to like, as because I recognize in myself I have people pleaser tendencies. So when I'm thinking about shows, it's like, you know, I have people who are like, oh, is anyone there in the audience that I know? Like, are there going to be any of my friends? I'm like, I don't know. And then like, it's like, oh, well, what about COVID restrictions? Is it okay if I do this? It's like, check with the venue. I like, like it's, you know, I can't. All I can do is show up with the music I've prepared,
Right.
and like, you know, do what I normally do. I can't be like, yeah, that estranged cousin isn't going to show up out of the blue, or that, you know, like there's going to be somewhere for you to sit. Like
Right.
I'm not going to be like, yeah, I'll bring extra chairs. I'll also, you know, make a guest list of do not let in guests for every person. It's like, I just buy a ticket and show up. Like, I don't know. I'm not gonna go out of the way. I had a friend who was like, not explicitly telling me, but he didn't want certain people to accidentally be there, so he asked if I had invited them, and then was kind of just like, I don't know if I want to go because they'll be there, but I do really want to go. I just hope they're not there. I hope they don't show up. I'm like, I'm not gonna. What do you want me to message them like? Don't come to my show.
Right. I need less people in the crowd.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, the whole point is we're trying to sell this place out so that we can use that as a, you know, a pitch to other venues. It's like, we sold out a 200 seat, and then, you know, to scale up a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
it's just funny. Like, I don't know if, because have you guys been gigging or not really, with all the, you know, the life changes happening and people getting married and.
Yeah, it's been kind of spread out. We had like a nice little push at the end of the summer, because I was like, you know, prime. Everybody's not everybody, but a lot of people are vaccinated, and you're not really gonna catch a cold in the summer, so nobody had like the whole like heebie-jeebie thing like we're having right now. But yeah, we played a string of shows. I think the end of July we played the Pyramid Scheme, and that was a hoot. That was our first show back, and it was an absolute banger. And then we did. It was kind of a public event, but it was more of like a business meet and greet for the West Michigan Cannabis Guild, and we played there with KJ and the Good Time Family Band and Crooked Spires, and yeah, it was mostly for like people in the industry, but it was also open to the public because it was at Turnstile. So that was fun. And then we played Unruly Brewing Labor Day weekend, which is always a tricky weekend, but we got some people to show up, so that was fun. But basically, yeah, after that gig, kind of went quiet a little bit because I got to crunch time with my wedding. But we do have a show next month. December 19th will be at the Tip Top Deluxe. We're going to be there with KJ once again. Another local band called Secret Forte, and and North by North, this super cool punk rock band from Chicago. But yeah, very much looking forward to that show, and we're already booking out into next year. So getting really excited to get back to it. I think only one more of our band members has a wedding so far. We'll see if our drummer gets engaged anytime soon. But yeah, our guitarist Sean, he's getting married next June, but he is also like the working man's musician. Like he's got a really good day job, but he always makes time for music. So with the exception of like very specific weekends, like bachelorette, bachelor parties, that stuff, and the actual wedding, I'm pretty sure he will be down to do just about anything. So
yeah, that's good to have. Like thinking of how last year through so many, some people left the industry, whether it was temporarily or not, and other people just they oh, I can't do as many shows, I'll do something else until I can start booking. And to see the bands that kind of figured something out to do, even if it was like as a collective being like, well, we can't really do anything right now, or oh, we have more time to work on this album or something. Just some kind of focal point, I think, helped. I know it helped Earth Radio just to have like the album that we put out last year, and being able to do a couple things around that to support. And the meetings we've been having recently, now that David Ward is our full-time drummer, it's solidifying like kind of that engine of like, oh, okay, we're all we're back into the swing of it in some capacity, while also navigating like everybody, like every person on the planet had something transformative from last year, so it's like figuring out those things and negotiating these new spaces and making room for everyone's growth. But yeah, it's good that you guys are, well, almost all of you are married.
Right.
And you're still able to like have a plan, and everyone's still in it, and there's no like surprise like, all right, 5 people are leaving this 4-piece band. Wait, what?
Right.
Hold on.
Yeah, no, I think it's always good to have, like, set those small goals for yourself, so then when you achieve them, it's like not as daunting to like set the next goal. Obviously, I feel like when you start a band, you don't want to just have that main goal be, biggest band in the planet. Like, you will be sorely disappointed. But yeah, setting like those realistic goals that you can achieve, and yeah, as long as everybody's on the same page. Our camp definitely got shook up last year. I know we unfortunately lost our keyboardist because he had to move out to California when he lost his day gig. Him, like a lot of us, who had issues getting unemployment, and he didn't have the luxury of like having a little nest egg, so he was able to trace his profession outside of music back to where it started on the West Coast. So that was a big blow, both because he's a stellar musician and he's just like an all-around good dude. But the rest of us still here in Michigan, and in all honesty, you don't really need to live in the same place to make music. So the door is always open for him to come back and record songs in the studio, or if we get like a solid string of shows, going around the Midwest, he would absolutely make the trek out. But yeah, it is definitely interesting. Like you said, I saw so many bands that like called it quits or made announcements about member changes, and I was like, man, like nothing's going on. So we kept real quiet about our lineup change, and I don't think we've even really like said anything official. We just
Right.
changed our bio from a 5-piece to a 4-piece.
Yeah. Well, and I think of the, you know, like these changes that are, yeah, happening with, I guess, in a lot of different projects and bands. There's some of it's, been tricky and hard, and others of it have been, projects getting kind of improved of like, oh, like bands or artists that lose their like regular touring gig and now they're part of like a really cool project in whatever area they live in. Or people just, I feel like Kurt Elling, the jazz singer,
Mm-hmm.
the album he just put out, this felt like he was bored during quarantine and was like, I kind of want to meet these people, and just made an album with like some of the Butcher Brown people and Charlie Hunter, and it's a cool record. But everyone who's listened to it that I've talked to, they're kind of like, it's different because Kurt's such a jazz dude, and to be
Mm-hmm.
in kind of a soulful funk project, it works with the timbre of his voice, but there's some of those jazz isms that that he's just naturally does that are kind of like, all right, that it works, but it's also like just different enough where you're like, okay, what did this idea come from? Just being bored last year, or did you have tunes? And now that all these people weren't touring or on the road because of COVID, you could hit them up and put together a session. Or so I'm sure there was a lot of like projects that happened last year that are going to come out in the next 2-3 years that were like, yeah, I was, I put together my dream team because they were all off tour.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's what I did with my solo album. I had no intention to be working on another one as soon as I did, but yeah, with touring coming to a stop, which was such a bummer. We were like just getting into it for our album. Uh, I was like, well, I mean, I've got nothing better to do, so uh, I had a batch of songs that I was kind of sitting on, and I narrowed it down to like the best ones, which is something that I had not done before. Like actually make like those critical decisions of what songs should make the cut. And yeah, getting you and Scotty on the album, that was like a literal dream come true. I'm like, these are like two of the best musicians in Michigan, and like we were all free because we weren't touring.
Yeah, I remember it was funny, like doing those sessions around the time, because around that month was, I think it was the same month I got the office at Third Coast. I'm coming up on a year of having it, or maybe it just passed. I can't remember the
Mhm.
exact date, but um yeah, it just felt like a fun, not even a distraction. It was just like, it felt like just normal.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, I just get to go hang out in the studio and see people and make music instead of just, kind of waiting and hoping something like pops up, or okay, yeah, I'll do something at my house again.
Hmm. Yeah, that
um,
was such a hoot. And Kevin is just he's got an amazing work ethic in the studio. I mean, uh, that was very fun for me because especially after working on the record with the band, and it was very intricate and like intentional, and it took a lot of time, which
yeah,
I'm glad we took the time to record it proper and everything. But it was fun to, granted it took like I think a couple months total, but if you put all the sessions together with recording and mixing, I think I spent maybe a week at Third Coast. Like it was just awesome to get it done so fast. And I don't think anything was lost in like the speed of the process.
Right. Yeah, that's well. I've experienced that speed, I guess, with the recent Earth Radio session. We spent, you know, like we played some of these songs over the summer. We spent like a month and a half kind of prepping, making sure we had, an idea of how we wanted things arranged. And then um with the understanding that like having a guest producer and having some other, people involved, there might be some tweaks and other ideas that pop up. Because it always happens. But we only spent like 3 days tracking our songs. And that was because all the full band tracking we could do, it just was like, oh, we've already rehearsed this a million times. Let's just do this efficiently. And that saved us time each day to like get these things down and then have, get right to the, overdubs and the guests we have on it and the, piecing all the other elements together rather than, spending a week on just like 3 songs or something.
Oh yeah.
That'd be
get right to the fun stuff.
Yeah, getting right to the dressing up of the tracks. But yeah, so you guys as a band I'm trying to remember, like, are you involved with a label, or I'm trying to think of like what your band, like the things that go into the Overdrive Orchestra.
Yeah, we are we're an independent band. We teamed up with White Elephant Records for a little while we worked on Electric Mind, and that was an interesting collaboration because it's like the studio is White Elephant Records, but it's also a label. And so it was kind of like a gentleman's agreement that we were like on the label as long as we were recording there. So yeah, Electric Mind is on White Elephant Records, which itself is an indie label. So whether we're on it or not, it's all indie. But yeah, once the pandemic rolled around and we finished that project, we pressed it to vinyl and everything. There wasn't really much else to do. We have just kind of went about our separate ways. There's definitely the door is open to work with Jeremiah again. But I'm always looking to do like the next thing, which is why I worked with Third Coast for my solo album. And I think we may end up trying them out. We've got an old song that it never got recorded the way that I wanted it to. It ended up being like just me on an acoustic guitar and vocals, which is cool. But again, not what my vision was. And so we're going to track it as a full band. And I think we're going to cut a cover song for the heck of it. And we're planning to, once we get together and hash them out before our show next month, get a date set and just see how that process is for the rest of the guys. Because we are very much looking forward to like tracking all together in the same room. That was something that we attempted to do at White Elephant Records, but there was like a certain amount of like bleed through that we would get when we were tracking the drums. And so it made a lot of the guitar parts unusable. And so we ended up like retracking the other instruments, which was fine because we still had that initial like session. And when I listened to the drum tracks, I'm like, yeah, we were all playing along together. It's just not my guitar part. And so, yeah, to be able to like track all together in the same space would be rad. And yeah, kind of using it as like a trial run. And if everybody is digging it, then we will probably use them for the next record, which we're well underway with writing. Again, thanks to the pandemic. So
it's I feel like a lot of my experience with studios I feel like most of the sessions I've done have been thinking of local bands, like it's mostly been out of necessity. Not like, oh, the price or the location or whatever. Oh, it's a friend's home studio and they can do it for 25 an hour versus trying to track it at a more professional space, or oh, I'm working with this one guy and he's doing everything, and that saves me time and money.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's nice to like have the option to kind of shop and be like, do we like the space? Do we like the engineer? Do we like the, how everything sounds? Do we like, playing instruments in this space?
Yeah,
Like,
that's huge.
so yeah, it's nice to see, like, I don't know, bands having that option, and also just being having the option, but being realistic to, like, like, you don't need to go to a fancy $1 million studio to track your solo acoustic album.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure you'll get like like, oh, we're gonna do a 10 miking technique, and we're gonna get like 2 stereo pairs of rooms and like a bunch of weird miking of a guitar and then an amp. But um yeah, it's like, it's way nicer to just find the thing that serves the whole process better than just thinking you have to like how you guys are like, oh, we'll do a song, see if we like it, and go through that whole process so that we know when this becomes like times 12 or however many songs, it's not going to feel insane.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing, and which I think is the kind of the point that you're making too, is just like being comfortable in a space, because that will come through in the art form. You don't want to feel like, if you're not comfortable in the space, then like the recording will probably sound a little rigid.
Yeah.
And not to say that you shouldn't go out of your comfort zone.
Right.
I feel like that's a separate thing, but yeah, you want to be comfortable in the space, and like you said, everything should serve the project. That was a big thing that I learned on the last record was, we're like a live band above all. Like that's like I am at like peak like nirvana when I am playing in front of people. And the process in the studio is totally different. And we had like a whole discussion when we were working on one of the tracks, and I was like, well, we're like doing all these like cool overdubs and stuff, and I was like, well, like we are a 5-piece, like, so we got the sonic capabilities, but like I want to be able to play this song live and like do it justice.
Right.
And Jeremiah was like, well, I mean, with all due respect, like I'm not worried about your live show. I'm worried about like making like a kick-ass record, and specifically like this song that we're working on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a great lesson for me to learn. I think I'd always been like cognizant of it, but to kind of put it under the microscope was beneficial. But yeah, it's cool because it's like I said, totally different process, different art form. And I think any artist or band that endures, they may not master it, but they have like a very good hold on both the live show and the studio process.
Right. Yeah, that's something we run into with Earth Radio, the studio versus the live, because if we, eventually it'd be cool to like, if we could do like Earth Radio arrangements that are more expanded and have like 20 people on stage to cover all the different elements. But that's always been, like we create something to the album because we'll be there. And like I posted a clip yesterday just about like, oh, we were in the studio, I did one of my piano takes, I did some kind of little catchy hook, and then I think Justin heard it, and then we sampled it into Hannah's sampler and had David just like trigger it to taste in the chorus, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's cool. I could quote that live, but then there wouldn't be any chords
Mm-hmm.
Or I'd have to like, only do one hand of chords, and that loses some of the sound. And so it's like we make these things in the album, and then we kind of figure out like, okay, who can take what can we do with 4 people?
Mm-hmm.
Or if we have more people on stage, like who could we delegate this to? But um that's that's yeah, it's important to like, I don't know, figure out how you want to present the music in different forms. And sometimes it, like, you could do a live studio album where you just, do a concert at a studio, and then you're
Mm-hmm.
capturing the live feel and getting everything tracked to an album.
Yeah, that's always cool when bands do that. But yeah, it is a fun challenge to, like you said, kind of figure out, uh, like delegate the parts to each individual musician, and kind of figure out like what are the important parts of the song, or like the hook, I guess. Um,
Right.
like I know one of our songs that we did on the last record, it had like a pedal tone piano on the second verse, and like some Stevie Ray Vaughan-esque like guitar fills, kind of like Let's Dance.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then obviously like the rhythm tracks. And so for a while before the pandemic, we were able to like do all that. Um, and then when we lost the keys, I was like, well, that part is like so like ingrained in my psyche now. Like I have to play that part.
Yep.
And thankfully the bass line is kind of following like what the guitar chords would be doing. And so you play the guitar chords in the first verse, everybody gets accustomed to that. So then when I switched to doing like the key part, uh and we're doing like the diddly guitar stuff,
Yeah.
nothing is lost. It's like still all there, because you kind of set the crowd up for it. And like I said, to me the piano part was like very essential at that point in the song, so I had to transpose it and give the people what I think they want.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's well, and I think of like when I saw Earth, Wind and Fire at NAMM last year,
Hmm.
and they had, Nathan East was, playing bass, but the other, I can't even remember the guy's name, the bassist for Earth, Wind and Fire, like he was also there, also playing. And watching them, I was like, okay, so they're kind of like, it's like Nathan can just hold down, the foundation of everything, and then the other bass player could add color and focus on other elements of the music, and kind of like switch back and forth between being a lead instrument and just a rhythm. um, and then there's other times where it's like, like Paris Monster. they they it's a drummer who plays bass synth, and then a bass player who like rarely does the role of a bass player. And then the drummer's the vocalist, and that's the whole band is a bass player who has a lot of cool effects and a semi-modular rack to do some like texture stuff, and then a drummer who's, really really solid sense of time, but can also play bass synth while he's drumming and singing.
That's
and
so
it,
rad.
and it's like, there'd be that moment where it's like, okay, I don't think that band as a duo would get better with more people. Like
Hmm.
if it was like, oh, you don't have to worry about playing the bass synth, you can just drum and sing. And it's like, well, part of why that works so well is because you have a bass player and drummer who is the same person.
Hmm.
And it lends itself to the arrangement better than trying to teach someone else how to intuitively feel what the drummer is going to do,
Hmm.
when all you're doing is separating those elements now.
Absolutely. uh yeah, I think that's another thing that that can get overlooked sometimes, especially in like here in West Michigan, or like I think of my time when I was living down in Nashville, and you have so many like hired guns, which is really cool. And I have mad respect for cats that can just sit in on any project. I mean, you sit in on a lot of projects, but
Right. Yeah.
you also have Earth Radio, and y'all are like such a cohesive unit because you've been playing together for so long. And I feel like, yeah, that gets kind of forgotten in the modern age, especially with like Pro Tools and stuff. Like, there's few things better than a band that is like so in sync, because they're they mesh well musically, and they're just like friends when they're off the stage.
Right. Well, and I see it a lot with singers right now. You know, the amount of time and effort it takes to put it together a band is like impossible for some, you know, if you're just a singer and
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to like, you know, find a project. I've seen a lot of like singers who like they'll do it solo and, you know, find a band maybe through that way if they play an instrument and sing. But I've also seen a lot of singers who they don't have a band. They just, you know, they're featured on a bunch of songs, and then they, you know, they're on a song with a DJ, they're on a song guesting with this band, they're showing up at a, you know, they're doing backup vocals for this other band. And then um you know, a lot of singers working with producers, so it cuts out,
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, like not even like the, you know, like going to a studio and then having a producer there directing everything. More of just like, this dude makes cool music in his bedroom and he can do keys and he can contract or play the other instruments. So all I have to do is show up with my song. We do the, you know, the demoing of it, send it out, get it back, do the real takes of the vocals, and then all right, they still don't have a band, but they're putting out music. And when the time does come for them to together a band, it is like they take. I've seen a lot of bands do and maybe it's just because it seems to happen in like the pop sphere, where they'll they'll put together, you know, familiar session dudes or touring musicians or whatever, and they, you know, they can play with whoever, but
Mm-hmm.
they take some of that, you know, that need for camaraderie, they take it and put it into you know, tracks. And it's like, okay, the band's going to sound cohesive as long as everyone sticks to this plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can you play in time? There's a there's a click going on in your ears, there's tracks filling out all the gaps of only having, you know, sometimes three people on a
Mm-hmm.
stage with a singer. And um yeah, it's funny to see like how people are adjusting. And maybe I just noticed it more during quarantine, like
Mm-hmm.
the people taking kind of an atypical approach um to, I don't know, modern music making. Although I guess there's always been singers who don't write and they just interpret songs from other, you know, established songwriters. But
For sure.
um yeah, it's an interesting time to like, it's like, oh, I want to be a musician. All right, where you gonna do session work? You gonna be on
Right.
Instagram all day? Or you gonna, you know, like I've heard from people who like they're, you know, this dude, Kyle Green, this guitarist that I met a couple years ago. He lives and teaches in Poland, but one of his students is like I think he plays in a lead a legion Allegaeon, I think is how it's spelled.
Okay.
A legion. But they're like, they're a, you know, they can tour the, you know, Europe and Asia and the US. They have a established audience. And the guitarist in that band was commenting on how it's interesting trying to keep endorsements because companies are like, they're seeing the value and the utility of like, oh, if I just give this kid who's already got 200,000 Instagram followers a guitar, like that's less upkeep. Not having to pay for a bunch of strings on, maintenance on tour. It's just in his climate controlled bedroom.
Yeah.
and versus like the people who need the endorsements, like, yeah, I need a fresh pair of strings because we played, technical metal and I beat up my guitar.
Yeah.
I need the endorsements and the support to keep everything sounding as good as possible um for the live shows. And yeah, so it's like the people who could, like, you see them on Instagram and you're like, they could just go out on the road with anyone. Some of them are like, nah, I'm just fine streaming and hanging out at my house.
Yeah, it's wild. It's a very interesting like subsect of the music community. And it's funny because I remember this was like, I don't know, half my life ago when I first started playing guitar and like really getting good at it. Um, I had not had like a band just yet. I'd played with other musicians, Adam Bogues being one of them. Um, but yeah, I didn't have a band just yet, and I got like really good at playing like with myself and like to backing tracks and figuring out songs from like live recordings. That's always fun. Everyone should learn to play by ear.
Yes.
Just side note. But I remember I had like a YouTube channel. I mean, I still have it, but it was just me playing along to backing tracks. And again, it was like that thing. Like I was only like, I don't know, 15 or 16. Like, oh, look at this kid. He's like really good. And then I started a band because I didn't want to just be that kid that plays in his bedroom. And here I am 15 years later, and I probably lost like all of my following on YouTube because I started doing like acoustic covers and stuff and like doing what's true to me right now. And I'm also not a kid anymore. I'm an adult. I'm a man, so nobody cares anymore.
Right.
But yeah, had I not like, wanted to start a band, I probably could have stayed on that. And who knows, I could be like one of those influencers these days. But like, I don't think I'd want to. Like I said, I want to be on stage playing music with my friends.
Yeah, as much as I like think about, and I'm putting out things online and trying to build that kind of portfolio of like, I don't know, putting out the little casting little lines and being like, someone might I might reel in someone who is a big Patreon supporter, or someone who will go to a show, or someone who will buy a record. You never know with anything. And um yeah, it's like, I don't know if I could. There's times, like I think of like winter. Like there's times where I would like to, I'll take 4 days and I'll just stream or something, and know that every time I turn on a stream for 3 hours, I'm gonna get, somebody showing up, interacting. But it's also, yeah, it's more fun to like have the full community spectacle of that, because I know people who do stream full time, and I know people who most of their ways that they've interacted with the world are through these online platforms, whether it's like they have some sort of chronic illness and it keeps them from like going to a lot of public events, or they have a disability, or they have agoraphobia. I don't know, like it's just something that's like, oh, that's why you're inside.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool, like having those, these spaces offer alternative ways for creatives to get their stuff out there and present it however they want to. But yeah, I feel like a blend is healthier. Having
Absolutely.
like engagement that's not just like little blips in a chat window.
Yeah, and I mean, not to mention that like all these different endeavors take time and effort. Uh, so I feel like you said, like a healthy balance is key because you don't want to get too burned out on any one particular facet. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that happened to me years ago. I was when I first moved down to Tennessee, I straight up like stopped doing like cover gigs because I, the classic singer songwriter 3 hour set, yada yada yada. And I was just like I was done with it. And the whole time that I lived down there, I was just playing with the band, um, and we made little to no money, which was fine. But we all had our day jobs, and it was just absolute fun. And we got really really tight with our drummer at the time, and we were a three-piece back then, and we pushed the power trio, I think, at least for the three of us, to its limit. And it was really fun. It was a good time. um, but I'm obviously back to doing cover songs and whatnot. But it's a healthy balance. I don't do strictly, I mean, outside of the BWK, I don't do strictly cover shows. I have a healthy catalog of original material at this point. So, um, and more often than not, the original material gets more praise, which is, I mean, that's what you want, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's all. That's been a nice shift I've noticed in the last 6 months, probably since, everything opened up again. Um, the more people talking about like original music that I've been a part of rather than just, seeing me do a mostly covers gig, or, doing something with a school where it's like, okay, yeah, we got, pre-programmed, rehearsed music, and it's fun, but it's not entirely, it's original in like tiny little bits, like improvising, or maybe we tweak some sort of like, oh, instead of the sax is doing that, let's have the horns. But um yeah, it's been nicer to have like more people show up for like the original projects, because that it's like, okay, this is making an impact. It's not
mhm.
just people hoping that, because sometimes you feel like you play an original show and then you have, like, I remember at the Berlin Sprague Fest, in Muskegon, I sat in with Desmond Jones, and the whole time I was on the stage, there was some dude who had like like a Buzz from the Melvins looking haircut, and like, was just like, kind of, it had like, had the you had those like really thick lenses that like kind of warp how you, when you look at his eyes, like the perception of like
Oh
what his
yeah.
eyes really look like. So it's just like an added layer of like, this dude's clearly a character. And he I was up closer to the front, and then it's like, okay, the rest of the Desmond Jones folks are all pretty much up at the front. And he took out his phone and went in front of each person in the front row or at the front of the stage, and was just holding up a picture of like a Tom Petty album cover. And he was like, you guys, this, and we're like, no. What do you mean? It's like, did you think this was the time to request Tom Petty? It's like, no.
That is so funny, and I feel like that's always been a thing, and it'll never go away. Um, that is
Yeah.
too funny when people do that stuff.
Although now, when I did the residency at the listening room earlier this year, I had a lady who wanted to hear All of Me by John Legend, and I know how to play it just from weddings, but
Mhm.
uh the rest, it was with normal mode, and Ian and Nathan hadn't played that, you probably because it's usually not a band song, it's just like, at a ceremony or something, wedding
Yeah.
ceremony. So we, now that I know I can at least for this one lady, I'm going to try it with other people, but we played as a band, we played Butterfly, and it's in the same key as All of Me. So when we got to the solo section, I was just like, do what you would normally do, and then I'll just play All of Me, just like how it sounds on the record, and then that'll be my solo, and then we can go into the rest of the tune. And after we did that, it was like an 8-minute song because of that, playing a whole other song inside of a song.
Yeah.
The lady was like, I heard it, and she tipped us, and I was like, oh, okay, as long I guess if I can dress it up like that, I'll do way more covers. It's usually like having to stop and be like, okay, I'll play the song that you'd rather hear the album version, and it's it brings back that time in college at this bar with I'll help you relive your memories. It's like that can be fun. It can also be kind of annoying, but that's also the people pleaser in me, just being like, I can't, like, Stacy's not coming back, I can't bring that. I know this was your song, and every time you go out and drink, you want people to play this song so you can cry, because the only way you can cry is if you're hammered in this machismo world that you live in. But
oh man,
it's like, and then other times it's just like, oh, I like dancing to that song. It's like, okay, it's way better.
yeah I can understand that.
Yeah, like at a wedding, it's like, okay, yeah, people just want to dance, that's fine, like we'll play the dancey songs.
Yeah. No, I do love doing that though. Putting the song inside of a song, that's a fun trick, especially if you can put a cover like in the middle of like an original song, or if you have an original song that ends like very abruptly, going right into a cover after that. I'm also obviously like a big fan of like not giving the audience a chance to catch their breath. That's a good way to prevent the other people, not the ones that come up with their phone, but the people that will come up to you. Like if you give them even 30 seconds between songs, like, hey, do you guys know Sweet Child of Mine? You do a really good job of it. Like, are you just saying that because we are a band with guitars? Like,
yeah.
Want to use Bound to Know that lick.
Yeah, it's like, are you saying I'm Axl Rose? Like, how
should I be offended?
Yeah, should I be insulted? Or well, I think that's one thing we've done with Earth Radio is just kind of streamline, like, these are the spots where we'll talk. These are the spots we'll give a little space in between songs. But we've been working on keeping the show moving. And then now that we're kind of partnered with this company, Juke, it takes a little bit of it keeps the audience interacting with the band, but it doesn't take away moments from the show for someone to be like, it's like, I know you guys played Annie by Erykah Badu. Can you play it? It was like, hey, you want to see what covers we have on our list tonight, and you want to tip towards them? Scan the QR code and you'll see it, and you can tip towards it. And we did get tips. The system was, since it's like a brand new company, the system was a little wonky that night, but it was still really easy for people to contribute. And then we still played both of those songs, and people tipped towards both of them. So I think I like that better for at least Earth Radio, like being able to facilitate certain covers, but we get to dictate what covers or what songs. And we can, because we've had those discussions in the band of like making covers, kind of our own, and songs we like from bands or artists we like, just to add to the depth of flavor, I guess, for the band.
Oh yeah,
just keep it, and you always learn something from covering a song you want to cover.
100%.
Or I guess even if you don't, like BWK, you've probably had to buy a pedal to like now I'm in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
This one pedal makes me in the 80s.
Yep. Gotta have that chorus pedal.
Yeah. So you you said everyone in the, I know Adam works for the, was it Michigan Supply and Provisions. Everyone in the band still has day jobs, or is it shifted because of quarantining? Or
The rest of the guys still have their day jobs. Sean, our guitarist, he is like the web designer for Catholic Central in Novi.
oh
Um, him and Cameron actually live on that side of the state, and Cam and his twin brother, fraternal twin, that'd be confusing.
yeah.
They have a business together. They do a lot of yard like landscaping, rebuilding of ponds, decks, just pimping out people's backyards. They do that during the summer, and during the winter they do a plow service, and their business is called Earthworks Builders. So if you know anybody in Metro Detroit that needs their stuff plowed this winter, I'm sure Cameron would be happy to help.
Yeah.
And then myself, I was kind of, before the pandemic, I was slowly like phasing myself out of my day job. I work up at Rockford Brewing part-time, and honestly, that job saved my ass when the pandemic did come, because I was able to get unemployment through there because of the hours that I work during the summer. I end up working more because we're busier. And so even though I'm a part-time employee, I was working full-time hours, and I was able to get unemployment through them rather than, PUA. But I'm back there again, but I'm still just like 2 days a week. So eventually I would like to be doing music 100% of the time. It's close, but not quite there. But yeah, we all still got the day jobs for now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's well, it's people, or I guess people who were, part of the rhetoric of like, we need to get back to work. And it's like, you don't even know what that means with,
Yeah.
with a pandemic. Like, businesses are changing, hours are changing, people's priorities are changing, lives have been changed. Like, it's not just like, I want to go back to Applebee's. It's like, I don't think anyone's ever said that in their whole life.
No.
Unless it's like you live in a town where it's like, all right, I could work at Walmart or the Applebee's. Like, there's no, like, these two things have killed off the other things in this tiny town. It's like those are the only options. But yeah, it's been interesting to see, like, I don't know, it's usually people who they either don't really know in depth what a creative field looks like for work. Kind of just seeing, like, touring artists not touring and then collecting unemployment as like, it's like, this is a problem. We have a whole industry of people that just don't work. It's like, I don't think musicians.
Yeah.
It's like, you have to do work. Like, the only people who don't do any work in the music industry are the people who are like, I don't even know, like, like the people who are plucked up as a kid by an industry, like, oh, Timberlake, Mickey Mouse Club. Now he's super icon. Like, he still had to, show up for choreography rehearsals, and, probably his vocal coaches, and, production meetings. And it's like, he's still doing work, even if he's not physically like rigging up a stage, running cables. He's probably having to do significantly less manual labor, but it's like, got to keep him limber for all the dancing. But yeah, it was funny seeing, like, some people who, like, realistically, like, by the way they would talk about the arts, it shows that they don't really they never had an appreciation for it fostered young. Like they've always just kind of been like, music's pointless. I was like, why?
Why?
Why do you think that? It's like, I think, other things could be more meaningless than that.
Yeah, I think Applebee's is pointless.
Yeah. Why do we have them? It's for like, I feel like the last time I went to Applebee's it was either when I was one of the years I did the musical in Ludington, because there's only like 4 restaurants in Ludington and 4 of them are chains. And then there's like 2 local restaurants. But before that, it was like, oh, this is where you go in college to stretch $20. Like, it's like, you can get two for 20. It's like, that's better than 1 for 20.
Absolutely. I can guarantee you the last time I was in an Applebee's was when I was in college. And I want to say I was actually playing a show there. So I don't know if I would have been there if there wasn't live music.
I can't say I've ever played live music in a chain restaurant.
It's an experience. I think in those situations, it's like the what's the term for it? When you're like a franchisee owner.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like specific to the location. But going back to what you were saying about appreciation of the arts, I think even when, like, before the pandemic and like now, like most of us are back to doing our thing in some capacity.
Right.
I don't think a lot of people realize what kind of work really does go into things. Like, so like you play a show and hopefully you make a profit from the show. You release a record and you're selling the record, you're making money that way. But there's so much stuff that we do on a day-to-day basis that it doesn't turn any profit.
Right.
But it helps to get to the next thing that will make us money. But yeah, hours of our time that just like we essentially have nothing to show for it.
Yeah. And yeah, it's like in direct conflict with capitalism. Like, most music work isn't for profit. And the ones that are super successful that can turn a profit, like, that's when you start to see, like, thinking of like the Greta Van Fleet thing, like the talented whippersnappers getting scooped up by an entertainment brand to bill out all these shows to build a story of, like, they just keep selling out venues wherever they go, selling out. And having a company willing to take those risks for the band, like, it's not the band falling on their face 100% of the time in that circumstance. Like, I'm sure there was work in the years prior, but just hearing about the lead up to where they are now was built on the support of a larger entity who, it's like, oh, Live Nation, they own a lot of venues, they own a lot of, they have marketing teams, they have, people focus just on social media, and then you just toss something in there and they can, take the risk of, like, all right, will this band blow up, or will they be like, kind of a dud? Like, let's roll the dice. And usually it's because they can see profit. It's like, oh, this band's gonna be huge. And then, but there's also people who have a good supportive audience and they lead, a solid life without having to, be at a superstar level. Like, I think that's also the perception of the arts, is like, you're either that guitarist you step over who's busking on the street and, playing for tips, or they're so unapproachable they're almost a deity.
Right.
It's just like, oh, if I could just pay $400 to be 1,000 feet from Beyonce. Like that's some people's version of the arts. And then, other people just want to be part of like, it's like, I don't want to be in any show that's above ground. I just want basement shows.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of all the little, like, I think, even after this, it's like, I'm going to finish up this interview and then, chat. I'm not being like, did the lyrics come first or the guitar? It's like after this, all right, Zoom will take a second to process everything into the files. I'll whip up like the dates for Earth Radio that we're doing this month and post that as added promo for the run of shows we're doing this week. And then, make another thing, probably like a Patreon update. And then, all right, the files are ready. I'll edit that video together, get it rendered. And while that takes an hour to 2 hours to render, I'll go do something else. Like there's no, it's not just like me waiting for the next show.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of like little skills and details. Although I have seen a lot of people who because of that, they, as artists having to be our own teams by ourselves. I've seen people who like, they worked at all the various parts of being an artist or being a music in a band, and then out of that comes like a skill, like, oh, I'm really good at video editing now. I chatted with a friend last year who she was touring with the Glenn Miller Orchestra as their singer, and then right around the time just before the shutdown, she was already like gonna make her exit from the group. She had been with them for like 3 years, and started taking remote work doing video editing for all these different schools that needed stuff packaged and stuff presented, and now she like has this more like, she's able to do this like, oh, I'm getting back into gigging and doing other music performing stuff, but she has the skill set. She could, as long as she has a computer, she can do it from wherever.
Yeah.
And there's some freedom in that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think all the things that are entailed with being an independent artist kind of builds different portfolios and different aspects. And especially with the pandemic, I think we all learned some skills that we may not have already known, or we perfected skills that we already were kind of tinkering with, because you had nothing but time, and it's live stream or bust for a while there. So that was, it's cool to see people kind of get better at that. I know our guitarist Sean, he's gotten really good at video editing, and he actually also mixed our recent live album that we dropped, because we figured, why not? Like, a lot of the times, if it's a venue that doesn't have its own sound system, we're mixing ourselves anyways. So obviously we sent it to get professionally mastered, but with everything that we've learned from other projects that we've worked on, it was easy enough for him to mix it like we would have anyways. So jack of all trades, like, man, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to, like, I mean, I'm going to be doing the musical residency again in January, February, and living in Ludington for a couple months. And I want to take that time as like realizing how much time I could afford in a day to, like, instead of disparate parts all over the place all the time, of like, part of my day's on a computer, part of it's at a venue, part of it's, in a car, like, to be able to say like, all right, every morning I don't really have to travel or go anywhere until the afternoon. like if I really am honest with like how to schedule things, and then what does that look like if I have a morning to like, you know, like make a decent breakfast or like
Mm-hmm.
practice or, you know, get things into a routine that are less, you know, scattered from saying yes to too many things and more focused because I've said yes to the right handful of things that are reciprocating what I want to do rather than just, you know, like being another like hired gun only and just
Mm-hmm.
gigging with different groups every week. And um yeah, which I definitely was that, you know, like 5 years ago, just
Mm-hmm.
playing in 6 different bands or whatever it was, and you know, holding down a church job and other stuff. But um yeah, to go into 2022 and be like, all right, I have 3 projects I'm involved in where I have some creative input, I have things I can learn from each group, I have people who want to work at various aspects of being in those groups rather than just showing up to get money from the gig.
Mm-hmm.
um, and that feels like more of what I want to put my time and attention into than like only doing Blue Water Kings or something.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Um, I feel like this season has been an exception for all of us because we're making up for last year. But in general, yeah, I try not to book too many of the wedding gigs to leave time for, the personal fun endeavors. Um, Again, going back to like a healthy balance. It's hard to have projects of your own that are as fruitful as a wedding or a corporate gig. But
Mm,
but yeah, I don't I would say the majority of us don't want to just be like that person that's like all you do. Um,
right. Yeah, and it's like the, I don't know, back thinking back to capitalism, it's like art becomes this interesting, like, you know, it's like a decoration for everything rather
mhm.
than having, you know, intrinsic value to the human experience or like it's weird because it's like you meet those people who are like, okay, they love music, love it, they can't get enough of it, awesome. And then you meet the people who the only time they interact with music is when they're planning an event or they're
Mhm.
planning, you know, they they want some version of the aesthetic of having a live band or a DJ or, you know, whatever that entails. Um, and then there's other times where it's like there's there's really no care of what is. It's just like we need, you know, to fill a function. And you know, maybe it's even like in some instances with companies trying to like spend money so that they can get a bigger budget ask for the next year or whatever, how that works.
Mhm.
You know, people getting paid a lot more money to do a lot less because of that. They're like, we
Mhm.
need to get rid of, you know, an extra $2,000. Can you do this thing? You know, or like if you're famous, you know, like T-Pain talked about this, where he had a club in like Pennsylvania hit him up to, you know, the club was probably owned by a larger parent company, and they're like, we have like 15 grand that we need to spend, and can you do an ad for like Instagram? And he's like, yeah. So he made like 15 grand making like, you know, a short, not even making any unique music. It was just like all this music I already have it cataloged for licensing. I'll
Yeah.
just pull that up and, you know, have someone come over and shoot it at my house. Made 15 grand. And it's like, that's where it's weird. Like you get to a point creatively when you start to mesh with the wheels of the industry and the random opportunities that can be afforded to you for seemingly just existing, but it takes like the middle ground's always the weirdest part to like, building the band, building the audience, building the catalog, refining the band, tweaking the sound, tweaking this, the process of it all. And it can be fun, but it also, yeah, I've noticed, partially because I'm, just getting over being sick, the time sink and the energy sometimes can be like, you got to find, like, yes, I took yesterday off. Today I'm just going to work from home, and then tomorrow is when I start going out into the world, because I'll go to Third Coast tomorrow. I'm in Ohio Thursday, Friday, back in GR Saturday. I have 4 gigs the week of Thanksgiving. Like, there's a lot happening in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I've been feeling less guilty about being more assertive with that time, because I'm my own boss now.
Yeah.
Not being at Founders anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know if you've felt similar with like having. I'm sure a lot of this year's been focused on like life around the getting married.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a nice change of pace.
Definitely. Yeah, I would absolutely say that it's been a welcome change of pace. I know right before the pandemic, kind of like firing on all cylinders, and when everything first came to a pause, I didn't really know what to do with myself. It's kind of twiddling my thumbs, but after like the initial trauma of it, I guess,
Yeah.
um, I actually did appreciate the time to like catch my breath. And I mean, Paige and I traveled more last year than we had probably the entirety of our relationship up till then. And kind of getting back into the swing of things this year, and even a little bit like near the end of last year. I know I had a couple of wedding hits in like the fall. Um, but it's been nice, like you said, to be a little bit more assertive and kind of pick and choose what you want to put your time and energy into, and musical and otherwise. I've been finding myself uh, really sticking to my guns as far as like, this is what my time is worth, and if you can afford it, then I will absolutely play. If you can't, like, that's cool too. Like, I'm not holding that against you, but
Right.
I'm not going to perform. Um, and it was weird at first. I think we're all kind of people pleasers, so it's hard to say no.
Yeah.
Um, but when you get past that initial hill of like just politely declining, it it's actually pretty freeing. And and yeah, it's nice to be able to put my efforts into other things, and also to just kind of uh yeah, just take a breather every now and again. um I always try to leave like at least 2 full weekends during the summer, like free from like wedding gigs and everything else, so I can go to my family's cottage up at Houghton Lake, and that's always like a really nice reset. um Kind of right in the middle of the wedding season, uh, go gangbusters up until like mid-July, take a break, and then August onward. Um, but yeah, it was definitely a nice change of pace to plan the wedding, and it was really fun to plan the music portion of it. Having done so many weddings myself, I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that it was a good party for the guests, because I know that like I'm, off taking photos for who knows how long, and
Yeah.
uh,
We have to
like it's
document you not being around everyone.
right. So yeah, well, we're not there. I want everybody to have a good time, and more importantly, I wanted y'all in the band and all the other vendors to have a good time and like feel included, and not have it just be work, because we all know how we can sometimes be like an afterthought, which
Yeah.
it's an unfortunate truth. But yeah, it's really been nice to kind of change my perspective and take a breath and yeah, doing a lot of like life stuff this past year. I mean, we bought our first house. We've got a puppy now. Um, doing all the stuff that I didn't really like have time to even think about when I was just going balls to the wall with all the different music endeavors. So
Yeah.
it's it's been fun, and it's great too to have such a supportive partner. It's not like um, I feel like some people they look at music as like a hobby and stuff, and that's not at all the case with Paige, which is awesome. I go right back to the music. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been fun. It's been a good change up.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And also a good, you know, reminder of like everyone's kind of been I think of just the conversations we've had in Earth Radio, everyone's past year has yielded, something. And I think of like, like, oh, Chris and Hannah, now they've lived together, for a year and a half only by themselves. Like they
Mm.
don't have Alyssa was their roommate, and then now she lives elsewhere. Um, I mean, they're still friends. They're like, hey, we just want to live as a couple. And then, Justin met someone and they're living together at, Max Morrison's family's farm. And with all of the shifting of people's, you know, things they didn't expect to happen, priorities, different things, there was always this past talk of like how much do we have to sacrifice for the band.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this kind of attempt to be like, all right, we need to grow this thing. And some of it is translated to like we don't really pay ourselves out from the band, we don't need it to survive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we want the band to survive, but we don't need the income from the band to like pay bills every month.
Yes.
um, which is a huge thing, a huge sacrifice to make, especially when like if I have a gig heavy month with Earth Radio, that means I have to really plan out the extra work I'm doing so that I can, like, oh, this month's busy so that I can save some money to get, to off balance, not taking a chunk of what is earned from Earth Radio.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the conversations have been shifting to like not so much what we want to sacrifice for the band, because that's already we've done the band's, we put 4 years of work into it, and different albums and Kickstarters and all these other back end things, and you know videos and sessions and traveling. um and now it's more like, what do we all need in our personal lives to make coming into the band even stronger? Like, what are the things that we need to have? And some of it might look like, understanding kind of the ebb and flow of a calendar year of like, all right, these
Mm-hmm.
are the months we're hitting super hard. These are the months we're traveling. These are the months where, you know, like if next year was kind of like this year, where we like the bulk of our work is in the warmer months, and then we take the fall to like wrap things up, but also like wrap up the traveling and touring for the most part, but focus on creating music and then letting that gestate over the winter as we piece
Mm-hmm.
together the next cycle of like, all right, here's the album coming out, what's promo going to look like, when are we putting out singles, how are we booking tours and shows and whatever to support that, what money will we have left over realistically for merch. It's like, I think that's what some people don't understand that either. It's like, what business encompasses like the seasonal changeover of like the fashion industry mixed with the the weird attachment to nostalgia that can happen unexpectedly, like having something resonate and like, oh, I built a career off of this one song, even though I had albums, prior to that. And then like the added thing of like, oh, what's it like funding your own, like, you're not like independent artists is like, okay, you're funding your own studio time, you're funding your own travels, your car repairs, your lodging, unless you are able to get those few places that you can either work out a deal or have stay at a friend's house, or maybe you have a decked out van, a motorhome. But it's been nice to like have because of work being so imbalanced from life is starting to balance out the work better, I think across the board for a lot of people.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, it's been a interesting year, but or a couple years, I guess, at this point.
Almost two,
but 2022 should be a good time.
Yeah,
2020 was supposed to be a good time too. But
I'm pretty optimistic. Yeah, 2020 just got postponed till 2022.
Yeah,
because I mean, I've been talking about this with friends and family, and obviously, like, this whole pandemic has been a very trying time, and it's a serious issue. To take politics out of it, but eventually the COVID-19 vaccine, this, that, and the other, the boosters, it will just become like the flu shot again. So I'm optimistic that once we get through this winter flu season and we get into next year, it should, I mean, I already went to 2 like full scale concerts in the last month. It was incredible. So we're almost back. We're very close. I'm not going to use the word back to normal, because I don't think normal was very good. But as far as music productions are concerned, we're just about back. Once I go see Rage Against the Machine and Run the Jewels in February of next year, then I'll know that we're back. If that show goes as planned, then I think we're good.
And everything will work out. It's definitely a, I don't know, it's interesting time, especially because creatives are so, like, even if people are like, oh, I read all my music and it's a fantasy world and it's not attached to real life, it's like, nah, but your surroundings, the people you're around, the work you're doing, like, it all influences what comes out of an instrument or on a record. And so it'll be nice to hear, like, or I guess it has been, hearing the releases that have kind of been those kind of snapshots in time of like how people have processed things, or like, like people like Seth Bernard just creating, like, when I reviewed his record, not the live one he put out, but the 4-track one he made on his own. I joked that it was like, this is the vaccine to the band. It's like a strong resolve to like heal people. They're like, with every note and word and feeling. It's also funny hearing it, because it's like you feel motivated to do it, but then you also, like, trying to make art like that or write lyrics like that, you're just like, this sounds really hokey. Like, I don't know if I could. I don't know if I have the conviction in this presentation to like do that over, like, just communicating it through a piano non-verbally. But it's been nice having music continue to be a through line, even in the absence of a lot of regular things happening. And I think this new normal has made a lot of musicians smarter and more aware of opportunities or surroundings, or just how to do the thing so they can keep
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah, I think we're all a little more intentional in all aspects of it. The notes you play, the gigs you take on, the projects you start. Um, yeah, we're a little more focused, I think. And I'm encouraged to see at least the gigs that I've played since stuff has reopened, is that it seems like the majority of people are also more intentional. They're listening, they're present, which I think is most important. I know one of the gigs that we played, I think it was our first one back, the only time anybody brought like a phone out was we did like one cover song, and it was again one of those situations where we had a song with an abrupt ending and just went right into the cover. And I think just that sheer moment of energy, everybody was like, oh my god, and they like pulled their phone out for like 30 seconds. But other than that, it was, everybody was very present in that space, and there was such a awesome give and take between the stage and the audience. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah, nothing beats it.
Nope.
But yeah, this was a great chat. I'm notoriously abrupt at just ending it because I don't know how to segue endings. But glad that got to be a part of your wedding and kind of see, like a high point instead of like running into you and it's like, yeah, I had to sell my guitar to pay for it. Like, no, Chris, what happened? And
no, we budgeted that out for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great to see the wedding, be a part of the wedding, and then and the album too, putting that out. And it was funny listening to it and remembering the session, but then also forgetting how many songs I was on.
Yeah, you crushed it, man. It was a marathon for you and Scotty both.
Yeah, just one after the other. But yeah, we've mentioned some of your projects and albums. I'll have links and stuff, but where should people find out what you do or what the band's up to, all that good stuff?
Yeah, for the band, we do have a website, overdriveorchestra.com. That's the best hub because that'll send you to all the other socials and streaming and Bandcamp and all that good stuff. For myself, most of my social accounts are Chris Cranick Music. Some are just Chris Cranick if they're a little more personal. But if you want to put I've got a link tree since I don't have a website.
Oh yeah,
throw that in there. But I feel like Facebook is always a good hub. Instagram, all that good stuff. But yeah, just Chris Cranick. Sometimes Chris Cranick Music. Google search that, you're bound to find something.
Cool.
And then, I guess just a quick promo. Because I know you have a pretty quick turnaround on these things. I will be playing a solo gig at Arctos Meadery on December 10th. And I will be at the Tip Top Deluxe, as I said earlier, with Overdrive Orchestra and some other cool GR bands on December 19th. I think music for both shows starts at 7, give or take. And looking forward to 2022.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great time.
Yeah.
That's all I can hope for.
Exactly.
But yeah, great chatting. Enjoy your week and
likewise.
And Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you as well. I'll catch you later. Have a good rest of your day and the rest of your week.
Yeah. See ya.